Okay, folks, I'd like to welcome you back to the class of petroleum agreements. You can allow me just my classes, and everything is backwards, when you're talking to the screen. I don't know how to adjust the glasses on the screen, but anyway, welcome to the class again. I believe it's the third of the series of lectures on petroleum agreements. And in a way, this is where we start the first part. Remember, I said there were 4 parts to the course on petroleum agreements. The first one is where we start now, and a few of the definitions were discussed last time also, but like work programs and agreements. So those are definitions. And the second part will deal with the different types of agreements. We will not get there today. We may get there by next time. Maybe, yeah, probably. Toward the end, I might go into types of agreements. Maybe before, I'm not sure. Generally, when I'm lecturing in person, there's a lot of exchange of questions and all. So we cannot set a timetable, how many questions will come up and so on and so forth. But here, I think about the middle of next time. I hope I can get to part 2. If not, we'll continue with part 1 until I get to part 2. And then we'll come to part 3, which will be related to oil policy, legislation. As I started saying last time, that all the oil in the ground will stay there. But how much comes out of the ground is in our hands. And that's when I talk about oil policy. We all know that technology has a major role in that. I didn't want to emphasize that already, that but it's the policy side that generally people don't understand that. And the right policy can bring in companies or domestic or international to go look for oil and produce some and leave some for the country. And so part 3 will deal a lot with policy questions, and I think you'll probably enjoy it. I think you will. I particularly like that part. I like all of it, and of course. And then finally, you'll talk about negotiations, how to negotiate. There's no hard or fast rule to negotiate, and there are different ways people negotiate and so on. But we'll talk about that at the appropriate time. And then last time, as my always habit, now this time, always I have a habit of going back and touching on a few things that we talked the time before, just to bring people to the present, from linking it to the present from the last lecture. And if I'm holding correctly, is remembering, we started talking about what is an agreement. It was a logical place to start. It's what establishes the legal relationship, which is binding, and spells out to define the rights and obligations of those involved in the agreement. We talked about it. I'm not going to cover all of it again. And say what you will, and we can talk on and on and on and on about agreement. But the single thing we have to remember, the single most important thing which we have to remember, having said that, nobody ever remembers it. It is simply one word. It's a marriage based on trust. That's all. The rest is filling up pages upon pages upon pages of no consequence. If you don't trust each other, why have a marriage? Simple as that. Why have an agreement? We're going to change it. So the point here is, I emphasize on that because many times we don't trust the other side. Government doesn't trust the companies don't trust the government, and then they have problems, and there were the conflicts, and we will talk about conflict resolution also. What are the different methods to talk about conflict resolution? And again, I think we touched on UNCLOS, the jurisdiction of nations outside their seacoast. And I talked about the UK and Norway, and the jurisdiction where it stopped and so on, and how did they settle theirs, and and between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. That will be discussed at length at a subsequent time. We spent a good deal of time talking with what are the objectives of the governments, why do they want you to come, you meaning the IOCs. And similarly, on the other hand, why is it that certain countries they prefer, who they meaning the oil companies, to go there rather than some other countries? And we made a list of what are their demands, desires, objectives of the government versus the oil companies. Some of those are collaborative, same desires and same objectives. Some might be divergent. For example, in the case of the government wants to maximize the development of the oil resources, a very legitimate demand, and to collect more revenues because they have to run the government affair. And one way is to develop the oil business and get revenue that way through taxes and so on and so forth. They want to encourage exploration and regulate its speed. You don't want about everything done the first year. You have to see what the results are and then regulate it for the future and what speed you want to proceed. The government wants to secure an oil supply for the local market and, of course, so that they can influence the domestic price of oil. Now, having said that, a couple of things are very important for governments now because they want local participation through local content, hire their people, local people, and get their services used. Okay. The two very important things that a government have brought about now in all agreements are technology transfer, means knowledge transfer. Engineers only think of technology in terms of engineering. Yes, it is. I'm not denying it is not. But again, technology is a much broader in this context. Subject is knowledge transfer, management skills. I was invited to bring somebody overseas when I was traveling. He said, well, can you have a professor come down and teach us about management skills? And I asked my colleague in the business school, a dear friend, Dr. John Daly, a great professor, take his course. He teaches good stuff. Well, very highly respected in the university, John Daly. Okay, really, he is one of the most respected professors there are in the School of Communication. So I asked him, I said, Professor Daly, can you come with me or go to that country? They want to listen to your story, and he did. And so that's the point. That's management. There's nothing with PVT here. Having said that, the government wants to earn foreign exchange in developing countries. They have a lot of things in terms of oil and so on, and all the lacking infrastructure. We're going to talk about all of these things. I'm just preparing you what comes ahead. Lots of subjects, and particularly we talk about the industrial engine, where I mentioned to you about the usual path. That was a side or a story or a divergent story. Just to lighten the lecture sometimes. Lectures sometimes get a little heavy. I know that. And so we have to bring in side stories a little bit. It just lightens the thing, freshens the audience, and I do that all the time. Maybe tell a joke and they laugh and they're a little lighter, they feel good. And then you start teaching them. Overseas when I'm in person, that's the way I teach you. I might have told you. I keep lecturing half an hour to 1 hour, compressing knowledge. Then I tell a joke and they laugh, they lighten up, and then I start again. That's the way I survived the 5-6 hours of 7 hours of lecturing. Okay. And another very important aspect in the more recent agreements is the emphasis on the environment. Governments are very keen, particularly now, to keep the environment clean. Previously, they didn't care about it. Then, well, if they cared, they didn't pursue it that much. Okay? More so now, for many reasons, awareness, we get more educated and all that good stuff. But more so now because of the oil industry is heavily, fast, quickly moving offshore in terms of production. Now, 40 to 50% of the world's oil is coming from offshore areas of Gulf of Mexico and all those mentioned yesterday, West Africa. And so those, for example, can you imagine that after those platforms have to be removed, the platform where you drill from is going to be costly, very costly. Okay. And once I read a study a few years back that only to remove the existing offshore platforms in the North Sea and so on would cost billions. I don't know how many, billions and billions of dollars. So the governments are aware of it, and they're telling the company that, okay, from day one, we want you to put aside some money on the side that accrues, adds up to the amount where we may need it in case of an accident. You know, we've had those. We'll talk about it. Let me give you one name, very famous one, was the Valdez. Take note of it. Valdez, V-A-L-D-E-Z, Valdez oil spill. This is the most famous one in the mid-80s. I think so. And this was offshore Alaska. So we may talk about that. Very expensive to fix. Then we had one in the Gulf of Mexico, which was a BP problem, as you may know about. And so, and these are huge, big ones. And there are so many smaller ones, you know. And they're all kinds of oils. In fact, today's newspaper talked about some oil spill outside of New Orleans. I hadn't heard about it, but suddenly I said, oh, what is going on here? So the governments are very much cognizant of the fact, cognizant meaning aware, that an oil spill could cause havoc to the livelihood of fishermen for 100 years into the future, just as an example. That's really a sad story for people who live off of the fishery industry in this area. They got hit hard. And as I said, the objectives can go on and on. So let me then quickly move on to the objectives of the companies, what they want from the government. This is just last time lecture, because I think it's nice for you to recapitulate what I transferred last time, so that from there we go forward. So there's a connection. Oh, we talked about this, now we go forward, okay? And soon we are going to go forward, okay? Well, of course, companies only want to go to where they think they can find oil, good sedimentary basins. They want to make money. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing illegal about it. There's nothing immoral about it, about making money. We're not doing a philanthropic operation. They're here to satisfy the shareholders, the owners, as long as it's a reasonable amount of return on capital. Okay, rate of return, they call it. Okay. They certainly want to make sure they don't go to a country that is not politically stable, that the governments don't keep on changing, and they want to make sure that the tax system doesn't change. I talked with President Carter, who changed the tax system, introduced windfall profits tax. Not right. I don't accept it. Here or there doesn't matter. It's President Carter or anybody else, does not matter. The rules of ethics, ethical behavior dictates. You don't change the rules of the game in the middle of the game. Remember I said learn to lose? Remember the story about widening the line, the post because you're losing badly in the soccer game? And that's what we're talking about, okay? Legal framework is formally been tested. Remember? It has been tested. And so on. Repatriation profits also what they desire is the company. They don't want all the money in local currency, and because of inflation, it loses value. And I'll give you some personal example of countries where I've been to, because inflation had devalued the money so much that it was unbelievable. So all this lies. Now let's go forward from where we left off last time. So now we start new. As I said, I promised that this time I'll move into definitions, into detail, like what is a license as an example, the first one. But before that, I left without giving you a thought to think, something to think about. I did say that a good agreement is one that is good for both sides. And I said, well, I haven't seen one that is really good for a perfect agreement, but something has come close to it. The question is then, how do you make a good agreement for both sides? Okay. Let me give you some thinking at this time on that. Then we'll talk about the solution. How do you do it? Okay. So let me show you how it happens in the real world. Let me show you. And then we go on to the different words like what is discovery well and what is a license and what is a norm price and carried interest. They're coming today, okay? Let me share with you what I told my finance class, that my desire is, when I'm writing on the board here, to make it big so you can read it, and make this line deep, dark. That's what I like to do. The problem is, if I make them too dark, they don't come off of the board easily. You see? So I have to walk very carefully. How much to push this so to become dark? I have to be careful, not too dark, not too light. Then you say, well, why don't you have to be careful? So, no, I don't like this circle. I'm not very good at drawing circles. Oh, that's as good a circle as I can draw. You say, well, why don't you use more of this liquid to clean it? No, I can't. It'll clean, but what would happen? If I use more of this liquidy stuff, it'll take half an hour for it to dry. So I can't write on something that's already wet. So you can see the balancing I have to do. Okay. So let us say this is a project, an oil project. And this portion, you can call it revenue. This little part belongs to the oil company. Let's call it IOC. And the remaining part belongs to the government. That's just an assumption. And let us say IOC share is 10% of this, of the whole project. The government share is 100%, 90%. The remaining is the government share, 90%. Now, this is what typically happens in real life. When the company is trying to convince the government in the agreement, it says, Mr. Government, you should take 85% the project, so the company will get 5%. Oh no, 15% of the project. So company said, government, you take 85, so they can get 15 here. Question: is this a good idea? Is this a good contract? Is this a good agreement? No, it is not. Good agreement is good for both sides. This is a bad agreement, bad way to negotiate. But this is how it happens all over the world. Why is it bad? Because in this case, this scenario, there's a winner and a loser. That's what The loser is the government and the winner is the IOC. You can see. Let's move on. Now we have the government side speaking agreement and negotiations. So the government says to the company, you take 4%, not 10%. So the government will get how much? 96%, not 90%. Again, is it a good agreement? No, it is not. You have a winner and a loser. Again, this is how agreements are negotiated. Bad, bad, bad. Can't do it. Don't do it. I have an idea how both sides can win. It's the same project. I'm going to make it where both sides are going to be winners. This is both. Case A is bad, case B is bad. How do we make both sides winners? Listen carefully, please. This is going to be homework. Take the same project. See the size of the spot? And both sides. Government and oil company work together. It's a marriage, work together. Same project. Make the small, this is the same project as this, and make the revenues coming or whatever you want to call it, a big project. So this, they will have to collaborate, they have to work jointly to make this into a big project. It's the same project, it's just made bigger. That is what we're going to talk about in part 3. So after making it bigger, the same project, what was the original? IOC got 10%. This is the intent. Government got 90. So the bigger is, the bigger project, the company will still get the 10%. You see the 10 here? The government will get the remaining 90%, the same as over here. What about here? Both sides are winners here in this case. Both. Do we buy by percent? Look at the size. 10% here of this small project could be $2,000 as an example. Remaining $18,000 maybe. Government gets 18,000, forget the 9%. You buy with dollar sign, not with percentage. Here, in this case, the government company will get, let's say, it's a small project, $3. The government may get the remaining maybe $20. Or if you want to do the math, make it, I don't know, there's like $70. Much more. I'm not doing math right, maybe. So the point here is, the percentage is the same, 10 and 90, but the amount that 10 will bring to the company is $3 versus $2,000 here. What the government will get, percentage will be $17 or $1,700, whatever the amount you want to make it, 300 or so. I think you're getting the message. Versus the 18,000 over here. So say what you will, 18,000 is much more than 70,000, 2,000 more than 3,000, meaning what? The percentages have not changed, the amounts have changed. In both cases, both coming out ahead. This 2,000 is bigger than this 3,000. No, it's the other way around. Let's go to 300. And this 18,000 is bigger than, let's say, this 17. So the point being what? The numbers here. Because I'm going to explain this to you at length. later on. And part 3, we're going to go into a lot of detail. Don't worry if it's not quite that clear. So basically what I'm saying here is the percentage doesn't matter. Keep it the same. The percent of a smaller project revenue is going to be a small amount. The percent of a larger project actually is going to be a large amount. So it's the amount of dollar in your pocket versus the percent. Who cares about the percent? In this case here on this side, a small project on this side, there is a, wherever that is, over here, is a big project. So I hope you got the message generally, okay? You're not going to be expert on this, that you will be, and I'll show it to you with exact numbers in the part 3. I'll show you. How do you make it big? I'm just giving you an idea, not to make you expert and clear at this stage. If you are clear, I hope you are. There's no reason, it's a simple concept. That's fine, but at the appropriate time, we will expand on this a lot. I will have a handout to give you. We will have a handout to go over this actual project. We'll make it bigger, okay? Just by all policies. So there's a handout coming that will actually make it clearer for you. In fact, you will be the one saying, yes, Dr. Malik, you'll shout. Now we know what you were saying, so don't worry yet, okay? This is just a thought I thought before the start of today's lecture. I'll just leave that behind for you to remember that it's coming. In fact, it'll be very early on in part 3. When we start part 3, it'll be it'll be in the early on stages, okay? So now let's go on to the words. Definitions. Let us start word in agreements, and you've heard it. License. You hear it all the time. So let's write down what is a license. I'm going to write it down, please. A license, let's write it down. English word, license. License means permission. Same, you can use word license or permission to undertake specified operations. Write it down, please. Under operation is a permission to undertake specified operation in a certain area, in a specified area. Explain that. And undertake specified operation at certain in a certain period of time. That constitutes a license. I'll give you time to write. You have to specify what you will do, where will you do it, where is the area, and when will you do it. Solve what, where, and when. This constitutes a license, okay? If you're ready, we can move on to the next word. The next word is let's call it successful well, discovery well. We constantly hear about discovery and discovery wells. A discovery well is a successful, write it down, that's what I'm going to speak slowly. A discovery well is a successful exploratory well. It's written on exploratory well. Now, if you ask me, what is an exploratory well? The exploratory well is where you're looking for oil, finding it in a totally new area where nobody's ever been before looking for oil. You can call it virgin territory, VIRGIN. New area, never touched before. That's an exploratory well. So when you find oil in a new area, it is called a discovery well. Okay. Another word that you come across all the time in agreements is called equity crude, I'll find it, and government take. One word is equity crude, I'll write it down in a second and give you the spelling. The other word is government take. Let me explain, easy to explain. What is the difference? Remember the old story? Remember this? In this example, this is a project. 10% of the project, it could be 10% of the oil coming out of from the project, or 10% of the revenue. 10% of the project here is belonging to what? IOC. What belong, revenue, oil, whatever you're going to, that is their share. That is the company's share is 10% here. That means company equity is 10%. So when we talk about 10% equity, we're referring to the company's equities. Ownership is 10%. The remaining 90% belongs to the government. Whether it's government revenue through taxes or something else, it can be in kind. It could then, in kind meaning it could be in the form of oil, or it could be cash, doesn't matter. What belongs to the government is called government, no, it's called government take. Government take. We don't call it government equities. For some reason in the oil industry, equity only refers to the oil company, what belongs to them. When we talk about the government, it's called government take. Okay. I hope that is clear. All agreements, I'm going to slow down so you can write it. All agreements, I'm talking oil and expiration protection agreements, have a reference to farm in and farm out. Let's write that down. Again, we're developing a terminology, language of agreements. Farm in and farm out. Where did I put my glasses? Oh, when I can't pick up the glasses, it's too much for turning back. Farm in and farm out. It is also referred to as assignment. I've written the word assignment. You assign your responsibility to somebody else. Okay. All agreements have reference to that. Let me explain. Let us say the government of, where do you want to go? Brazil? Okay, let's go to Brazil. Has a contract, an agreement, expiration protection agreement, with IOC, let's say Exxon, let's say that as an example. And it is a 30-year agreement. After 5 years, let us, they have to stay there, they go look for 30 years to produce. After 5 years, as Exxon thinks maybe they should move to Australia. Nothing wrong with Brazil, there's a policy made in the headquarters in Texas. So they decide that maybe we should move to Australia after 5 years. For whatever reason, we're not going to look at the reason why they're going. The question is, can Exxon leave or not leave? Are they allowed to leave or not leave? Because they still have 25 years to go there in the agreement. That's the question. Or leave without any penalty. The answer is yes, they can leave, although there are still 25 years left for the agreement to expire. Provided there's a condition that Exxon will bring somebody in its place to replace them. So they say, okay, Chevron will come in our place, we are leaving and going to Australia. Under those conditions, they can leave. Now, let's talk about some of the situations that might arise. One is that Chevron is going to take the place of Exxon. The final approval, who's coming in place of Exxon, important point, the final approval should be with the government of Brazil, whether they accept Chevron or not. They can say, no, find somebody else, Exxon. We don't like Chevron. No. So the final approval rests with the government of Brazil. There's another point that we have to remember. What about an oil spill, let us say? Let us say that Exxon has caused an oil spill in Brazil. The question is, who should be responsible for cleaning that oil spill? The company that is leaving is Exxon. The company that is coming in the place is Chevron. You see the problem here? So that has to be very clearly defined. The Chevron you're taking coming in, so let us be clear, who's responsible for that? Sometimes to settle that issue, serious question. The government gets involved and say, well, look here, Chevron and Exxon, you two agree on who will take care of what, but make sure we are sitting in that agreement document, we're sitting in the negotiation that we are also signing that in our presence, in the government's presence, these two companies have accepted their respective responsibilities. So that will be a three-side agreement between the government, oil companies, 1 and 2. So I would call that a tripartite agreement, tri meaning three parties agreement, okay? That's a tripartite, three-sided. Government also sits in and say, well, we have witnessed to discuss this and we accept or not accept this. Okay. Let's talk about a problem in this regard. This is a real case I'm going to talk about that happened. You think it's easy, this understood? No, it's not as easy as you think it is. This case that I'm going to talk about now took place in Nigeria about farm in and farm out. Actual case. I read it in the newspaper in Texas 10, 15 years ago. One company, an American company, this is named Ashland Exploration, ASHLAND. Ashland Exploration was a medium-sized American company. They were looking for oil in Nigeria 10, 20 years back. And they decided to leave Nigeria and brought in another company. I'm not sure, a company, the name is ADEX, I think, ADDAX or something like that. So Ashland farming out, the one that is leaving is referred to as farming out, farm out. The company that is coming in the place is called farming in. So Ashland says we are farming out. ADEX says we're farming in Nigeria. Of course, the final approval is that of the government of Nigeria. Now what happens? As the president of Ashland in Nigeria was off to the airport to leave, he got a call from, this part I'm making up, from the Minister of Oil there in Nigeria. Hey, Bob. Bob is a typical, if you don't know a fellow who's from America, you don't know, just call him Bob. 90% people in America are called Bob. 70% people in what are they called? Korea call it Kim, you know, these standard names. 30%, 40% people in Latin are called Jesus. So Bob is a very common American name. If I don't know somebody's name, I say, hey, Bob, 90% I've got it right. And the remaining 10% are Johnnies. I call them Johnnies. But that's the side story. So what happens? The minister of Nigerian government says, hey, Bob, come and see me in my office before you leave. Okay? Minister, hey, have a seat, Bob. And he goes to see the minister. Bob, not very happy. You're leaving the country, I hear, the minister says to Bob. Oh, yes, I'm leaving. Do you know what, Bob? What? You did not get my approval. You cannot leave unless I approve who's coming in your place. That's the law. That's what we have it in agreement. Real case. Bob said, Mr. Minister, don't get upset. I did follow the agreement. And he says, no, you did not. Whoa. Very opposite situation. One says, yes, that was a no. Can't be nothing in the middle. Bob said, Mr. Minister, don't get upset. Read the agreement. It's sitting in your desk. What does the agreement say? We, Ashland, will submit an application to the government of Nigeria seeking the permission to leave, farm out. And that annex is coming into place. It's all in the application to you. And the agreement says, if we don't hear back from the government of Nigeria for 60 days, no answer for 60, that means the government of Nigeria is automatically granted the permission. So, Mr. Minister, we sent you the application 4 months back. Nobody heard from you. So, according to agreement, approval granted. No, thank you, sir. I'm leaving. So what I'm saying here is, sitting here in a nice room and you're comfortably, whether you're lying and listening or sitting and listening or watching TV and listening, all this, sounds okay, no problem. Oh, I know what you're talking about. No, you don't, because I just gave you an example. Simple things can become very complicated after a while when in this situation they did. So that was the definition of farm in and farm out. Let me pause for about 30 seconds, let you write. Now, let me take up another word, another concept, which is a part of every agreement. When I say every agreement with the government and the company, that's what I'm talking about. And if it is not, then make sure it is a part of an agreement. It's good for both sides. Remember I said, an agreement is good for both sides. So what did I say should you include in your master agreement of A&P? It's called a unitization agreement. It's a part of the, there's a master big agreement. In there are clauses and articles and subsections and all. And one of them refers to unitization clause, unitization agreement. Let me explain what that is. Pay extra attention because many fields, most fields in America are unitized. But many fields overseas are also unitized. Not all, but many are. Question, what is unitization that I'm talking about? let me give you an idea. I'll draw it on the board. I'm going to move to the side so you can draw this. Okay. Here you have three companies, A, B, and C. And the boxes you see are lease, L-E-A-S-E, lease blocks. The company A block is represented in the box here, and C and B are accordingly in different boxes. They're all adjacent to each other. And then you have this, I think the blue line that you see with that is an oil field. Question. To which company or in which block, to which company or to which, in which block does the field belong to? Block A, block B, block C. I don't know. Some would say it belongs to all three of them. That's the point. If you look at the oil field, there's oil in it, of course. Does that oil field know which block does it feel? It all is one field. Oil field doesn't know it's a block here and a block there. There's just one field. As far as technically, it's just one field. That's what I mean. Can you just produce in the portion of the field that is in block C, just that portion? Or can you just produce oil in the portion owned by the company A? No. I'll tell you why. So, take note of it. In order to maximize, the word is maximize, M-A-X-I-M-I-Z-E. In order to maximize the oil production from the field, very important oil policy question. For technical purposes, this should be considered not three little parts of one field or three little fields. It should be from technical point of view to maximize the recovery. This field should be developed as one single field, not three separately. What is the benefit? That way you get the most oil out of the ground or under the ground. If you unitize it, the process of making these three little parts of the field into one unit, one is called unitization. And I explain why is it necessary? When you maximize, because it is good for everybody. Now, Give you an example. Water flood. First course you take in petroleum engineering, I think. No big deal. Every petroleum engineer is water flood. Let me give you an example of a water flood. Recovery of oil, secondary recovery. In case of a water flood, you're going to make this feed into one unit. Let us say you have oil drilling here, and these are called injection wells. Water, you inject water, you know that. So you inject water, and this water from the bank and flows this way. Here, right here, you have what you call recovery well. You inject water here, these well, and you recover water and oil here because the water is sweeping the oil with it, and you get a mixture of oil and water here. You separate the two, oil from the water, and then do with whatever you want to do with the oil. Sell it, of course. Most oil will come out of the ground like that. Then you can go into tertiary recovery and miscible recovery and chemical. That's subsequent to that. No, not a bad idea. The question is, can any one of the companies A, B, or C say, oh, no. No, I don't want to be part of this project. I want exception. I don't want to be part of a unitization of this. I just don't. For whatever it is, don't ask me, I don't want it. I'm not a part of it. The question is, let's say it was company C, let's say. Isn't it? Can C refuse or not refuse to be a part of it? The answer is no, C cannot refuse. So what? Because the law in most every country, 200 countries, I don't know about every country, but most every country has this law. It's called law of eminent domain. Right? Law of right of eminent domain. Under that right, under that law, no single company can say, no, I don't want to part with it. If you want you to write it down, what is the law or the right of eminent domain? I'm going to paraphrase it. I don't know the exact wording. What implies in this law is the right of an individual, my right, your individuals, is secondary. My right as an individual are secondary, or if you want to use another word, subservient SUBSERVIENT, subservient, secondary, lower, SUBSERVIENT. The rights of an individual are secondary to the rights of the society as a whole. If, but the individual giving up its rights by giving up its rights, the individual's rights, the society benefits as a whole. I'll make it simple. What this simply means is, if I have a right, we all have rights, and if I give up my right, and everybody in Austin is benefiting just because I gave up my right, everybody's benefiting. So the government says you have to give up your right because that 1 million people who are going to benefit from it by you giving up. That's what it means. I'll give you an example where this law is used, how it is used. I may have mentioned yesterday, the electricity here in Austin is coming from various sources, where we have our power plants. City of Austin is a municipality. City of Austin is municipality-owned utility. You and I own the utility here, and I used to work there myself in the early 70s as head of the fuels area of nuclear and coal and whatever. So one of the sources of electricity coming to Austin, one is coal. If you go to Houston from on Highway 71, yeah, there's Bastrop, there's LaGrange, then it's Columbus, where you come to Highway 10. So between LaGrange going towards Columbus, about 10 miles towards Columbus on Highway 71, look to the left. That's about 65 miles from here. You'll see a power plant. It's called the Fayette, F-A-Y-E-T-T-E, power plant. Coal. Coal is coming from Montana. I used to be involved in the plant back then. Not I didn't. I was involved with the contract of the plant. Coal coming from near Canada. 50% of the plant electricity generated is ours. It belongs to the city of Austin. You and I. That's 60 miles from here. There's another project, which is the world's largest project. I probably talked about it before. It's called the South Texas Nuclear Project, and we own 16% of it. So it's 2,500 megawatts. So 400 megawatt of that project belongs to us, people of Austin. So it's 200 miles. Now, why am I talking about all of this? Right of eminent domain. So the electricity is being generated 200 miles from here in the nuclear project. And if you see the transmission lines anywhere, they don't go like this. They're like half a mile, and there's another pole, and there's another half a mile. They're going straight on and on and on till they come to Austin from South Texas. How come they're all on straight lines on the top? Because of this law. There's no rancher, no farmer between here to Austin and South Texas project can say, no, 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 you cannot have the line above my territory, my ranch, my land. No, you can't. No, 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 we can. Because the electricity is benefiting 1 million people of Austin, so you will have to give up your right, Mr. Rancher, who falls on the way. So therefore, we'll have to go straight. We can't have a line going like the transmission this way. Same thing goes with the roads. Go to Houston. Roads don't go like this. They have big curves, depending on topography, I think. But they can't say, one rancher said, no, you can't have a road here. You can't. So the road will go like this if they all use their own discretion not to allow us to go through the land. All these are under rights or laws of eminent domain. And same thing with the unitization. Most fields in America, because we've drilled, golly, we used to drill 90,000 wells. Wait, take a breath. We in America drilled 89,000 something. 90,000 wells a year. Can you imagine? Is there any place left to drill here? At one time, look up Google. At one time, here in this United States of America, I was here when it happened. We were drilling 4,500 wells a day, one day, 4,500. So the point is, these wells, they're not like big wells in the Gulf of Mexico. They're like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet deep. They're not seismic and all. They just have, here is a well, here is a well. The fellow say, hey, let's go drill one in the middle. That's all they want. Really, if you ask me, most of them. No seismic and all secondary, blah, 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 blah. So these wells in the field, if they discovered one, the field very close. The drilling had to be, so we have acreage, very blocks are, a few acres here. So we easily move from one field to one field can move from one acreage, meaning lease block, to another very quickly. So for that, in Texas, we have a department that deals with these things. Petroleum engineers, you can find a job. They're looking for petroleum engineers. They're the most highly paid petroleum engineers, but you will have a job which is lifetime. If they don't pay you well, so who the dickens is going to apply there and take your job then? That department is 100 yards south of MLK. From Justice Center, it's about 600 yards south. In the buildings, I think I was talking about, the government building and the Department of Texas Railroad Commission. Texas Railroad Commission, they regulate the oil industry in Texas. It should be called, not railroad, petroleum, Texas Petroleum Commission. But 150 years back when they started this, there's not much oil. It was all about railroad moving from one area or through Texas. So they used to call it Railroad Commission. But now, it's a different story. They haven't changed the name. I wish they did. Okay, so now you all know all about Unitization Agreement. What else can I teach you today? Let's talk bonuses. Bonus. We're going to talk about 3 different kinds of bonuses that exist in the oil business. I'm talking globally, around the world. What are they? Three kinds of bonuses. Signature bonus, production bonus, oil reserve based bonus. And the most common is the signature bonus. It's very common these days overseas. Very common. We also have production bonus, not as common. And we also have reserve-based bonus, oil reserves found. You get a bonus, not used that much, but still used in some places. Let me explain each one separately. Signature bonus is signature bonus. What can I tell you? It's an oldest kind, very prevalent around the world. What the signature bonus was in the past is not the signature bonus we know of today. It has changed in many ways. In the past, let me see. Give me a second. I'm looking at the time because we've been talking non-stop and I forgot track of the time. 2:30, 3:30, 4:33, 4 o'clock. So I think another few minutes are left for class ending. Not few, but several. I think we're 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think we started around 2:30, 3:30, I don't know, 2:30, 3:30, 3:45. I've lost track of the class. No, never mind. 2:30 to 3:30 will be 1 hour, and 3:45 will be 1 hour and 15 minutes. I know. Then we have a lot of time left. That's the case. Let's continue. Not worry about the time. Subject is signature bonus. In the good old days, this was where it all started. When two companies agreed while negotiating an agreement to export and produce oil, the government would say, hey, give us a signature bonus, give us a bonus, give us a $2 million bonus. What for? Oh, just to celebrate and that we're going to be partners in the future, $2 million. Whoa. So $2 million is a lot of money, by the way. Oh, you're rich people. Oh, give us some. So the companies say, okay, here is it, $2 million. I have a problem with that. I've got several problems with it. That kind of a system. One is, have I produced any oil yet? No. Is there a guarantee that I will produce oil? No. So why in the world would you ask me for a bonus? Oh, never mind, you guys are rich people. So, yeah, company then, under duress, not very happy, they write a check for $1 million or $2 million. Goodwill. What goodwill? It's $2 million. You can buy a lot of goodwill for that. So now what happens? The other problem with the signature bonus that I've had always is later we'll talk at length about this, all expenditures that you incur to do business in every country, in every tax system, in every place in the world is a tax deductible item. For example, if I have a revenue of a profits of $100, I spend, or $100,000, I spend $30 in running the business, rent and electricity, So only $70 are left as profited, but I pay tax on $70. The rest is cost of doing business. Standard everywhere. Everybody does it in the tax structures. I have no problem with that. You don't pay taxes there. You pay less in your tax. However, my problem is, normally the $2-3 million that you say, all right, here is not shown as a tax deduction. You cannot, it's like not a cost of doing. The other thing, yeah, you can say I did business, it cost me so much, so I made so much money. Here, this doesn't show anywhere in anybody's accounting books, the $2 million. Oh man, I don't like that. I really don't like it. If it's a legitimate thing, it should show in the books of the company and show it to the government. I said, look here, man, I paid the guy $2 million. I should not pay that. But it doesn't show anywhere. And you begin to wonder, what happened to the $2 million I gave? Who got it? I'm not saying anybody is bad or good or corrupt or not. I have nothing to do with corruption here. I'm not a corruption investigator here. But, begin to wonder. In some countries, I'll cite you the example of Peru, where I used to go a lot. They have put the signature bonus to good use. I have no problem with that. Whatever is used money-wise to develop a transfer of knowledge, I welcome it. I'm the business of, transferring knowledge. I have no problem with that. So the point here is that in Peru, they have a good idea that if there are 5 companies, each giving in $200,000 or $2 million signature bonus, that means what? 5 companies to collectively have what? $10 million collected. So they use that to train Peruvian engineers and geologists and economists for training of the local has to be local. I have certainly no problems with that. Training, legitimate. Why should I object to that? So that's the. However, things have changed now. Signature bonus these days, in some cases, I've read and unbelievably read with no belief in that it's possible. Some countries are demanding and getting countries hundreds of millions of dollars as signature bonus. I'm surprised somebody's giving it. The second kind of a bonus, I have no problem with that. That's a production bonus. Simply it's a production bonus. What can I say? You produce, you pay a bonus. You don't produce, you don't pay. I have no problem. At least you're producing. Meaning you, meaning the company. Example. Agreement might say, well, the day you find oil and start producing, you give us $5 million, government, give it to them. It goes into some books and all that stuff. And then when you start increasing the production to $10 million barrels, give us another $5 million barrels, $5 million, and so on. You go to 20 million, give another. So you can, keep on adding the production bonus directly related to the level of production. No problem. At least if I'm the company, I'm making some money and I'm sharing some with you. I have no problem with that. The real problem I have is with anything related to oil reserves. Oil reserves. I tell government, please, and I tell them, never, please listen to me, never tie anything to oil reserves. If you do that, always remember I said it, there will be a conflict, there will be a problem, and then you'll have to go to the court of law to settle this problem. Don't do it. Not a good idea to tie anything to reserves. That brings up to a very important lesson, especially for petroleum engineers. You hear this all the time. And I'm going to ask you, and I rarely get a good answer. Talking about reserve. Have you heard the word proved reserve? Yes, you have. What is it? I've yet to have 5 people tell me in the world what it is. You'll be surprised how little people know about the precision of the word proved reserve. Remember petroleum, it's your area now. To be called a proved reserve is a nomenclature. It's naming the type of reserve. To be called or considered a proved reserve, it must meet 3 criteria. Let's write them down. Please remember that. This is important for you. Particularly if you're going to join a consulting company and 90% of the work of consulting firm is reservoir consulting, has to approve reserves. How do you determine them? So please, there is a whole bunch of engineers spending all their life doing that, and there's a lot of job opening there. I can give you some names of companies that deal with approved reserves all the time. I've dealt with most of them. In the past, of course, when I was a banker. In order to call a reserve category, it's a category of reserves, classification, it must meet 3 criteria. Number 1, to be called a proved reserve are those proved reserves that you can produce at today's current oil price. That's 1 criteria. Oil or gas price. That's the heading. Criteria, I'll give you 3, that define how, why, and how to call oil reserve, and category is proved. See, there's something showing up on the computer. Dropbox, what is that? Reserves that you can produce at current oil price. I'll explain with write it down first. After you read, I'll give you 3 minutes, write it down. Then I'll explain everything. Criteria for defining proved reserves. It must meet 3 conditions. It has nothing to do with the English dictionary. It is the Petroleum Engineers Dictionary. I'll tell you who gave it to me to tell you this, not Webster English Dictionary. Reserve that you can produce at current oil price. What does that mean? Current means now. Question. If the price of oil goes down to $2 a barrel, will we produce from the North Sea, or Gulf of Mexico at $2 a barrel? Is it economic? At $2 a barrel, we will not produce from the Gulf of Mexico. Period. Those reserves at $2 a barrel cannot be referred to as proved reserves because at $2 we cannot call them proved. Did we drink them? No, they're still there, but we can't call it proved. Tomorrow, if the price of oil goes up, to $100 a barrel, you better believe it, we will produce from the Gulf of Mexico and call those reserves as proved. So it's only on paper when they go to $2, we can't call it. They go to $100, we can call it proved. Remember that. It fluctuates with the price of oil. The proved reserve category fluctuates with price of oil is only one factor. Non-engineers cannot understand that. I was a banker and I had a difficulty getting them to understand what I am saying. That's one criterion. Number 2, proved reserves are those that you can produce under existing fiscal. No, did I put on that? No. Number 2, sorry, sir. That's what I was wondering. That you can produce with known technology. Very important. I think I mentioned yesterday, but I won't take a risk and but I'll do it again. Today, we have the technology. We do today, not yesterday, today. That we meaning the industry, can drill in a column of water column, which is 11,000 feet in the ocean of the sea, or Gulf of Mexico, Brazil offshore. Column of water in the sea, 11,000 feet. And that's the bed, that's the surface of the sea. And from this bed of the sea, 11,000 feet below the surface, we can start drilling from here down and still find oil. So that's the technology today. Did we have that yesterday? No. How did I find out? I traveled around the world. And I was lecturing to a company called SAIPEM, SAIPEM, one of the largest drilling companies in the world with big tankers outside, offshore drilling. And that's what they told me. They said, we have a ship that can drill at 11,000 feet to column of water. I didn't know that. They told me. And they call it SAIPEM 11,000. That's the thing they've named the ship. So pointing to what? Technology can change the amount of proved reserves. We can only call them proved only based on the known technology. So yesterday, when we could not drill to 11,000, we could not refer to them as proved reserve. Call them what you want, but you couldn't call them proved. But today, it's a different story. We can refer to them as proved reserves. So these are definitely the two criteria. But the third one, I've added myself to be practical. Let's read it. Number 3, existing fiscal terms. Reserves that you can produce under existing fiscal terms. What is fiscal? Fiscal is taxes that exist today, not in the future. Example. And taxes change, the reserves change. Pick a government. Let's take a fancy. Government of Botswana. Can't wait to get there because I love safaris. I am fond of safaris. Let's talk about safaris. Forget about reserves, they're boring. Let's change the topic. No, blah, blah, blah. No, come on, on and on, reserve. So lighten up with the safari. I've been to many safaris, and I encourage you, young men and young women, do it. You like it. Now I'm into what do you call that? Cruises, because old men, the safari in Kenya, the jeep is going up and down. Every bone in the body is, broken up because of old age. And I've been to safaris in Tanzania and in Kenya and South Africa and all that stuff. Do it not my way, because I lived in lodges and fancy places. Old men like fancy lodges to stay. Want to be comfortable, old age. Do it more like my daughter and husband, young, like you guys. And they went into the pitching tents and all that stuff, and sleeping on the floor. That's the way to do it. I wish I'd done, as a geologist, did some of that, but not anymore. So now, cruising is different. Just go there, check into a room like a hotel, and the room is moving around different parts of the coastline, and they feed you and they take you out and they have music, and you're just lazy thing, Age, I would still now. So go on a safari. If you had to pick one, since I'm a connoisseur of safaris, meaning I can tell you where to go. The famous ones don't go there. The most famous one, don't go there. I've been there. It's called Kruger, Kruger in South Africa. Why not? because it's like a metal road, like you're on the street in Austin. When you don't want to go to a forest or jungle with roads, you want to go to virgin, rugged ditches and all the stuff with the. You can't go in your car because the car can't last. The special jeeps for that, and no top on the top, and you got a special driver who knows that area. He can locate the lions under which tree we'll find it, or where the herd of elephants. That's what it is. And so that's why I don't like Kruger. It's too organized, I want a little, I'm an old geology guy, The one that we enjoyed, I took my daughter with us, or we did, and her husband and my wife. No, you can't do it alone. More fun. One in Kenya, and you cross over into Tanzania. This is called Serengeti. Serengeti. Oh, wow, that is a real treat. If you really want to see animals in their own habitat, take that. They cross it from the country of Kenya across the border, and the jeep will take you across. And went to Tanzania. And there's what's a crater? Is when you have a volcano on the top. There's a crater formed because the magma flows like this, or the lava flows like magma. And it is a huge, many mile wide crater. And we went there, and they said every animal in the world except giraffe is found there in that crater. It's part of the jungle and the forest. Anyway, so I thought I'll throw that in to get away from this boring, about the fiscal regime and all that stuff. Just to get you feel for a different feel for the topic at this time. Otherwise, it gets boring. I can't talk about boring things all the time. That's not me. Let's go on. The third criteria I said was, for existing fiscal term is, fiscal is taxes. I was saying Botswana. Why did I start with safari? Because Botswana has got great safaris. I wish I could go there. If I'm old enough, a little older, I'll go there. I might meet you there. Okay? If I meet you there, I'll reconsider the grade and give you an A then. Not yet. So if you want an A, meet me in Botswana. Forget all that. Let's go on. Existing fiscal taxes, meaning if the government of Botswana says the taxes are 99%, are you staying or are you getting out? Oil company, I'm out in 15 minutes. I don't want to be there. They're taking all my money. So all the reserves, Botswana cannot be placed into the category of proved reserve. They're there, but they're not called proved under the global. I'll go to this definition. I'm coming to that in a minute. But the government of Botswana said, well, we've reduced the taxes to 7%, not 90%. Am I going? You better believe I'm going back. So what has happened now? There's nothing fixed about technology and all. There's nothing fixed about approval. You change one of these criteria, what I've listed behind my back, you change the amount of approved reserve. You can change them after 15 minutes with the price changes after 50. Non-engineers have a difficulty understanding that. I had a difficulty conveying that to the banker because, yesterday you said this approved reserves and today you said they changed. No, that's your thought from the big English dictionary Webster's. That's not the engineer's petroleum engineer's definition. Now, having said that, whose definition is this? I keep saying it's not my definition of what and a classification. What to call what? Two agents. One is government and one is profession. Who gave me this to tell you? I didn't make it up. Well, I'll write it down. Well, I might as well tell you, sitting. One is the Society of Petroleum Engineers. This is their definition I'm giving. I'm just a messenger. Society of Petroleum Engineers. 100,000 members, and I'm one of them. Student membership fee is very reasonable. Maybe you can become one and get some benefits. I would encourage you to do that. This is the definition given to me by the Society of Engineers Petroleum to tell you what is the probe reserve. The other one is a regulatory government, regulatory, R-E-G-U-L-A-T-O-R-Y, regulatory body of the US government called the Securities, IES, and Exchange. Securities and Exchange Commission of the government of the United States. They have told me, and they hire petroleum engineers, by the way, Washington, D.C. They are the one who defined it, because the oil companies and other companies have to send reports to the SEC every year. So said, send us a report based on our definition, and our definition is this. So the Exxon and Chevron, BP and all, they have to follow their definition, the one that I'm giving you now. Early on, I said to you, that do not accept anything related to reserves, like oil basis, bonus based on reserves. I said strongly, don't do it. It leads to dispute and all that bad things. I'll tell you my reason. Let's put it on the board. Why I'm against basing anything on reserves, which might surprise you. Draw this, please. Okay, let's start. This is the production from an annual production from a field. Made up story, okay. Production on this axis annually over the years, time here. And these dots you see scattered around are the productions for the different years. One of the very bright engineers, highly experienced, very honest, UT graduate, is given this information. And from this information, that engineers is asked to forecast the production of oil in the future. Write about historical. This is today. As I said, a highly respected, very highly qualified, very good guy. Got an A in my class, let's say. He's given this data, historical, this is historical, of the production from an oil field. And from this data, he's asked to, in his opinion, to do the forecast of what might come in the future as far as production is concerned. He's very excited when he sees this data because that's all a petroleum engineer loves. Boy, normally they don't have so much data to use for extrapolation for future production. So when he sees that, he's jumping with joy. Well, I can do that, no problem. Historical data, you can't beat and can't get any better than that. So this good engineer takes this data, and I've seen all of this, by the way, and he says in the future, hold on, you can produce this much oil in the future from this field. This is today, remember? So this wonderful petroleum engineer said, whatever falls under A, this is the amount of oil you can expect to produce from the future from my knowledge. Okay, good. That's what his forecast is. There's another engineer who is equally qualified, highly regarded in his profession, highly respected, and he asked the same question. Mr. Engineer, would you please tell us from this data, same data, how much oil is there left to be produced? No, no problem, man. I can do it. I've got so much useful data here. Oh, no, I'll tell you exactly. So he does this. This is today, remember? The second engineer draws this line. Draws the graph B and says, this is much oil is left. Oh, wow, all this oil will be produced in the field. Engineer said, No, you're only left with this much oil in the future. But these, oh, there's so much oil. Still, look at it. Is there a difference between A and B's projection? Have a look at it. Let's talk about it. Yes, you cannot believe what you've just seen. How can that be? They're good, honorable engineers. There's nothing wrong with those guys. What a difference. One says the reserves in the graph A and the other B. Wow, one says $100 left, 100 barrels left, that was at 10,000 barrels left to produce. Reserve based on this data. Who's right? A or B? Tell me. You both can't be right. Both can be wrong. Maybe one is right, maybe one is not. I don't know who is right. I really don't. When will we find out who's right? Or who was right? When the well stopped producing after 10 years, or 15 years, or 2 years, or 30 years. Then we'll say, aha, engineer says that's right, man, now there is no more product. Oh no, B is right, because now we're still producing. But then you'll have to wait till the end of the production. Who knows when that will be? I know what you're thinking. You think, Dr. Malik, interesting story, but it doesn't make sense. I know. Taught it many times. Interesting story, but it doesn't make sense. It can't be like that. No, it is like that. How would I know it is like that? And believe me, and I'll tell you how I know it. This scenario, I've seen thousands of these wells drawn like this, not one. So, Dr. Malik, how did you see thousands of these wells? You know, you keep talking about, you keep bragging about everything. I'll tell you how I saw them. I was a banker. My job is to look at this. From this to extrapolate for the bank, how much oil is there left to produce to give money to the oil company based on reserves in the ground. How much should we give them? So my judgment, one man alone would tell the bank how much money there is to, how much money to lend against so much oil. So I would always ask the borrower to bring me a reputable consultant in the country, data I'm not going to do raw data. I don't have the time. I've got so many clients. I've got hundreds of people to lend money to. So you bring me your analysis and I'll look at it, and they would draw this. Literally, there were 5 or 6 major oil consulting companies in the country anyway that does this kind of stuff. Ryder Scott, DeGore and McNaught, Code Lab, I can give you the names. One day, I'm going to tell you really to make you believe, because I know you're not believing it. The company came they wanted to borrow money. I was in Houston. And this was my job, not to worry about interest rate and repayment. No. That's typical banking, boring stuff. This is what the company fellow said, I want to borrow. I said, well, how much money do you want to borrow? And that's $540,000. Million. We talk, Barclays is the largest English bank. It's been around for 300 years, even before America was created. You want 540 or some $1 million. I'm sitting there with that. I said, well, okay, then show me. Why should I give it to you? So I said, how many wells do you have? Because I'm going to calculate, determine. And he said, we've got 13,000 wells. 13,000 wells? I said, okay. I said, show me the data, this stuff, the one I'm showing you. Show me this stuff that I'm showing you for each of the wells. So the next day they bought 13,000 volumes and volumes and volumes of paper with every well was based on this kind of graph here. I didn't see all 13,000 I wasted. I took it 20 or 30 and made my judgment whether it's good or bad to look at the rest. Anyway, we gave them the money. Based on that's only one client borrowing. Then the next day, another one with 10,000 or 10,000, 2,000, 1,000, 50,000. All day long, that's all I looked at. So I've been there, I've done it, I've seen it. It would be A and B. No, it's my judgment then. The bank was paying me to judge this. Which one should they rely on based on Dr. Malik's assessment? There's a lot of responsibility. Only to prove that this actually happens and did happen, and I know that. I'll end with a story to make you yet believe one more time. There was, before me, there was well, I will go that route, that may take unnecessary time. There was another case where a company came and they had disinformation and they wanted money. And their engineer, his name was Nick, he was from Vietnam. And Nick had a master's degree from UT Austin. He was one UT Austin graduates. Nick. This was in 1982, 40 years back. Computers were limited calculation capability, very small. Barely started computers. No, computers everybody knows. No, not 40 years back. So Nick brought me this information I'm showing you on the board, similar for his wells. So, and his wells that he presented to me, the bank, was production that was coming from a formation called Austin Chalk. It's a Texas, is it? Austin Chalk is just a formation from which oil is produced in Texas. The characteristics of Austin Chalk is when you drill a well in Austin Chalk, it is a gusher. Boy, my goodness, oil jumps out to the sky. But only 6 months, and it disappears. So the lithology, the strata formation, so it's got a big gusher, a lot of oil, but it will last 6 months, maybe 9 months, maybe a year if you're very, very lucky. I knew that. So Nick's evaluation that he presented to me, the bank, was on Austin Chalk, and expecting it'll be 6 months, maybe he'll show me 9 months, maybe a year production. That's what one would expect. That's been historically true. Everybody knew that. So when I looked at his graph that I'm showing you, guess what? How many years production was it showing instead of 6 months in that graph? How many years can you imagine? Real presentation to the bank, not a fake story, not a fake borrowing money, real stuff. The production profile in the future he was showing me was not 6 months or a year. This is, remember, it's 40 years back. Guess what? 93 years, and I think it is 4 months or something. 93 years and 4 months. Oh, 90. I said, Nick, I knew the guy from Austin, from my department. I said, Nick, why did you stop at 93 years and 4 months? Why did you? I think you should add another 2 months. You're just cutting yourself short. I said, why did you do it? Why did you stop? He said, no, I didn't stop at 93 years. I said, then what? He said, no, this is 40. the program capability that now it's infinite these days to calculate, the computer. At that time, he said my program, when the computer capability was only to show production, not complete, only for 1,000 months. I said, so when you take 1,000 and divide it by 12, that means 93 years and 4 months. So that is how it stopped. The computer stopped because it was capable of only calculating for 1,000 months. Thank God it was then. If he had the same story now, his computer would have continued for God knows till Christ comes back to us. No, so I've told you stories. Can you tell you more? So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't have trust in these numbers. I'm not saying that. I'm just opening your mind. That's all. What I'm saying is, why go into an area where there's going to be conflict? Typically, in reserve, you can see I'm telling you stories after stories, is not to be relied upon. Who knows? I'm not saying they're fake or they're fraud. Don't base giving somebody $20 million based on his showing results. You don't know what lies ahead. Give it on production, give it on something else. I have no problem with that. Having said that, I think that should be enough now. And I'm looking at the watch. Typically, when I would lecture in person, I would negotiate with the students. I like to negotiate. I say, you have a negotiation. Either you take a break in the middle of the lecture, or that's not to take a break if you don't want it, because it would definitely be very taxing for me. You're just sitting there listening. But if you don't take a break, it's taxing on the professor, obviously. Either you take a break, after we come back and I'll lecture for the rest, or while it's taxing, but I'm willing to play with you. If you don't take a break, we save some time. And we'll leave a little early because I didn't take a break. And just guess, where was the vote always? No break, no break. No, they didn't care about me. They just said no break, and they could go do whatever they want to after that. And so I had to continue. And then I said, the deal is that if you don't take a break, we'll leave early because, we've taught you enough. So the way I look at it is not how much time is spent. No. That's not the point. The point is how much has one packed the knowledge in the short time we have. One can go on storytelling upon storytelling and fill all the 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever it is, or pack it and see how much knowledge transpired. I like to believe the second. Having said that, I think for today, I'm the judge. Have I done enough for packing? You don't know. Is it enough or not? I know. Because if you go overboard, it's like it's like a pail of water, like a jug of water. You overfill it and you add some more, it flows out. So, the same thing with knowledge. After a point, it gets saturated. You keep adding. It's not a physical thing. That the mind just, enough is enough now. So having done that, and I feel comfortable with I have to be comfortable with myself. I'm telling you, because it's my passion, it's my love of my life is to teach. So why would I not be comfortable with it? So having said that, this lecture or future lectures, it doesn't matter when. I think we've done well today. We've covered a fair amount of ground, and I have no problems. Let's go home. Enjoy yourself. Catch you next time. Pass the knowledge somewhere else. Don't keep it over here, okay? Have a good, whatever it is, good night's sleep or good afternoon, wherever you are. And we'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.